Alright, you ready? Whoa! Yes! Welcome to my shop. Got a new gun I'm starting on today. Been pretty excited about this one. I bought it probably, gosh, I don't know, 6 months or so ago. Thought I'd be starting on it right away, but I've done a whole bunch of other cool guns instead. This is a Vulcan Arms 20 gauge side by side. Got nice checkering, hand cut checkering, both the stock and the forearm. Got some surface rust, nothing too bad. This is a side lock. Got a little bit of color case hardening still left on it. That doesn't mean anything to me because we're going to recolor case harden it. It's going to look awesome. A lot of cleaning up to do to this. So what I like to look for in a gun when I'm going to restore it is it all intact? I like original parts instead of mismatched parts. Does it have the original furniture, barrel, receiver? Internal parts don't matter. Those would people use these guns a lot, and they'd go out and they'd have to be repaired. That's why you see a lot more gunsmiths than what you see today. So this met all those qualifications for me. Again, wood is in good shape. It does have a couple little chips out right here, which is pretty common. A lot of times that happens because the stock gets a little loose. A lot of times you see it's busted up here, and that can come from a loose stock. So when somebody's shooting and that recoil's coming back, it's not up tight between the stock and the receiver, and these pieces will chip off. So if you ever notice your stock getting a little loose, make sure it's tight and good and snug. It doesn't guarantee it won't break. The stocks are still going to give out sometimes, but a lot of times I find that's the reason that they get these little chips right up here. So make sure your stock's tight, but I'm really excited to get started on this. Have been for a while. It's going to be a really cool gun. It's going to be a cool project. Hope you'll follow along with me. Alright, so refinishing guns, you go to strip them down, take lots of pictures. You're helping future self. You may look at it and go, I know exactly how it's going to go back together. Good chance you won't, or you forget, is it this screw or is it this one? So take a lot of pictures. There's no reason not to take a picture. You can always delete it. But take lots of pictures. And not to mention, it's nice to have before and afters. So before you get too excited and jump into restoring a gun, lay it out on your counter, take some pictures from different angles, so you can then come back after it's all done, take those exact same angles and have the before and afters. So, so we start getting this baby stripped down. Once I start getting into here, every time I take out a screw, I'm going to snap a picture, and that way in a month from now or so, whenever I'm done working on all the parts and go to restore it, I'm able to go right back in the reverse order and see where everything went. Save yourself a lot of frustration, promise. Inside of these side locks, and that was a lot of woodworking skills right there to get these to fit just right. Craftsman did a good job being able to make these. You see all the intricate pieces they have to carve out to make it fit just right. They got to carve out that to be able to fit in there. Amazing. Amazing craftsmanship that went into these old guns. Even a clunker like this that was just meant to be sold at a hardware store and be used to put meat on the table. Still was a lot of pride in the work. This is just a working man's gun. Filthy mess. Alright, well that concludes the first night breakdown. I'd say this probably took, I don't know, 2.5 hours with me taking a quick break to go grab a bite to eat. Parts are roughly clean. Certain parts I like to separate. Like the side locks, I have the left side all together and the right side all together. The reason is, I probably should have got a video of this, but like some of the screws, or one of the screws on the left side had been filed down, and it was probably to fit into the stock just right. So I can't just use any screw when I put it back into that place, because one had been filed on half of it. So great thing about these old guns are, something you just don't see on any modern guns with modern technology is this thing was it was crafted probably by mostly by one man, and he machined all the parts to fit this particular receiver and stock. And even though you could buy a used part and it would probably fit, there's also a chance you'd have to do a little bit of machining yourself to make it fit just right, because every one of these was back at this time was made for that particular, to fit that one gun. So it wasn't the production line where every part and every piece is exactly the same, so they're all interchangeable. One craftsman made all the parts to fit right into here. So anyhow, I washed this receiver up. Just about done for tonight. I may do a little bit more, but as far as the wood goes, no sanding on this. We're not trying to change anything. These deeper nicks and stuff, they'll just be in it. That's part of the gun. I'm not trying to make this exactly like brand new, just trying to refreshen it, give it a little bit of a makeover. The other thing on these side locks, where there's just such great craftsmanship done on the wood here, is on other guns I may soak if I'm really trying to make it as like new as possible, I'd soak these in maybe acetone to help try to pull out all the oil and everything. But on these, where there's this thin wood and stuff that's up in here, you don't want to dry that out. So I'm going to wash this with some soap and water and probably some orange cleaner, and just try to get at least the outside funk cleaned off on it. And then want to bring this checkering back to life, make it look great. But you got to be careful on any chemicals that you would put on here, because if it's going to dry it out, it'll make this super brittle in here, and that's what you don't want to have happen. So anyhow, it's a fun part of the project. Alright, so on this Vulcan Arms, also known as Crescent, I believe Vulcan Arms was I don't know if it was a sporting goods company or what it was, but they were not the actual manufacturers of the gun, even though it bears their name, Vulcan Arms. Pretty sure it was made by Crescent. So this old gun was in poor shape to look at, but it had all the right attributes of a gun to be restored. The stock, all the wood furniture was in good condition, and the tarnish on the metal wasn't too bad to where it was pitted beyond being able to polish out. So so far so good. So with these side locks, the inside of these gets very brittle, and in fact, when you're cleaning the wood, what you don't want to do is soak it in like an acetone or anything like that you might do otherwise, because this area in here, I don't know if you can see this, the way they have had to carve this out, the middle is just so thin that it starts cracking. In fact, that's what has happened to this. There was some cracks that tend to happen right along this ridge, so these top pieces start to flare out. But I was able to use, and it's the first time I've used this stuff, there's several of these brands on there. I first saw it through a Facebook ad that kept popping up, and it's a cyanoacrylate, and you can use a activator to make, it's like a super glue that can be used on a lot of the other stuff, and it's a little bit more flexible. And it's got an activator you can spray on it, and it makes it dry super fast. But anyhow, I used that to go along the inside and then hold these pieces together. And so far I really like what I'm seeing from it. It can be used to fill little cracks. There's a little tiny just splinter right here I used it on. Anyhow, I went through the inside, any place where it looked like it was getting thin or starting to crack, and used that as a filler. So we'll see how that turns out, but I think I found a new product I'll be using. But anyhow, as far as getting the wood nice and cleaned up, I did not sand this at all. I washed it with soap and water, used Dawn dish soap and a scrubber, and it cleaned up really nice. And then I put some of this stuff on here. This is a stripping gel. It's made from citrus. It works well on wood, but isn't so rough that it messes the wood up at all. And that helps just degrease it some. So wood is really good to work with on this. Again, I'm not trying to make this look like brand new. I'm not going to sand it down. It's not a brand new gun. I don't want to try to pull it off as one. I want it to look like it's just in really good shape. Something else is, anytime over the years, people, this area of the fore end and right around here, the stock tends to get saturated with oil. So one way that you can get that out is you can, again, soak it in acetone or some sort of chemical that's quite likely going to also dry the wood out. But that citrus stuff will help pull some out as well. But what I found to be probably the most effective, without ruining your wood, is to use a heater. You're not trying to overheat it or burn it, but if you just want to get some of that oil out of there, start heating this up, you'll see the oil start drawing out of the wood. See it starting to get dark and wet there at the end. Not sure if you can see that or not. See all that oil starting to come out? So then you can just have you a cloth here that you can use to wipe that out as it comes out, because it'll then suck right back in there. So that's a good way to get some of the oil out of your wood, but just don't overdo it. All right, status update on the Vulcan Arms. Got the pieces all polished up. Got any of the most at least of any scuffs or rust pitting that was on here taken care of. Trigger guard really came out nice. A couple tiny little dots where there was some a little bit deeper rust pit that I just wasn't going to go down after. Got everything else worked out of it. This piece I want polished up really nice because this will be rust blued, but the other parts here will be color case hardened, and everything's coming along great. This piece goes in the fore end. This is shaping up to be a very nice restoration. Going to be a cool gun. So first thing to do with the Vulcan Arms receiver and parts that are going to be color case hardened is to anneal them. Annealing is taking it back to its the metal's form that it was in before it was color case hardened the last time. So it's essentially putting it in a kiln. The setup, it's still a little warm, it's about 200 degrees. The setup is the same as, well, almost the same if I was going to color case harden it, meaning that it's in a crucible, it's filled with charcoal. It's filled with charcoal, and then it's put in the kiln, and it heats up hotter when you're annealing than when you're color case hardening. In this case, it heats up to 1520 degrees, and then it holds there for an hour. And it's the rule of thumb is an hour per inch of thickness of metal. So most receivers don't have any part of them that's more than an inch. Now the receiver's over an inch, but the as far as thickness of metal, it's not typically over an inch. And so it soaks there for an hour.
the kiln shuts off and it cools on its own. So I annealed this, I started it yesterday evening. By the time the kiln heated up and got to the 1520, sat there for an hour. It took, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 hours to get to that hot for my kiln. And then the kiln shuts off and it just slowly cools. When I come out here this morning, right now it's about 7 a.m., this was down to 200 degrees, just over 200 degrees. So anyhow, that's the annealing process. If you'd like to see what parts look like when they come out, let's fish around in here, see what we can find. They don't always necessarily have that bright blue color. Get the triggers. Still a little warm, so I think I'm going to let this cool off a bit more before I go in for the receiver that's down there. I'm just going to let it sit some more. But that's the process, and I can repeat this process as many times as I need, meaning if I color case harden it and I don't like the results, I just anneal it and start over again. Another term that you'll hear is tempering. Tempering comes after the part has been color case hardened and you like what you see. You're going to keep it that way. So tempering is heating it up to a much lower temperature for a couple hours, and what that does is it relieves some of the stress that takes place when it's color case hardened. And it's got this fragile, can be fragile outer shell. Well, by putting some more heat on it, again, at much lower temperature, that reduces some of that stress that's on the parts. So you have annealing that comes first, heating it up really hot, letting it cool really slow. Color case hardening, heating it up pretty hot, 1300 degrees, bringing it down to about 1100 degrees, quenching it in cool water, kind of a shock. That's where you get those nice colors, and the carburization takes place to the outer skin, if you will, of the part, and then you temper it, which is the lower heat, and then you're ready to go. Thanks for watching. All right, just got this out of the tank. It's my favorite part. This is Christmas for an adult that's into this, because it's like unwrapping your present. You just don't know what you're going to get. So this is my kind of present to open. What's it going to be? Is it going to be socks, or is it going to be something cool? I think this one's going to end up back in the kiln. I don't know. What do you think? I like this back here. Up here's a little blah. Alright, well, I'll get it all dried up and make a decision, but if I were a betting man, I bet I'm going to redo this one. Alright, got one fresh out of the tank. Let's see what we got here. I've been doing some at lower temperatures. At lower temperature, I've been doing 1090 when I quench, and for different receivers, different types of metal, the lower temperature of 1100 is good. I don't think it is for this. I think I gotta take the heat up on this. That is strange.
No good. No bueno. Interesting blue, though. Like a baby blue. I think the shielding was definitely better than it was the first time I did it. Huh. Live and learn. Third time's a charm, they say. Now we're going to try number 3. All right, here we go again. Third time's a charm, we hope. Check that out right there. Yes. Higher heat was the way to go on this one. All right, I think we got a keeper. I'll do a closer inspection. But my supper's waiting on me and I'm hungry. Now I can eat knowing this came out pretty cool. I love this the most. And that's nice. Alright. So last night was the first night of putting the barrel in the fume bluing tank. So I'm getting ready to put the boiling water on it. The fume bluing does such a nice even job, especially the first night. You get just the best, nicest, deepest coat of rust. However, you can see right here it didn't rust as well. Everything else is perfectly even. I must have had some sort of soap or something on my gloves last night that got on this section. Takes just a thin layer and prevented it from rusting. Now the good part about rust blowing is that'll eventually even out. I want to do this process 12 or 15 times, something like that. It'll eventually all get to the same darkness. It can only take in so much bluing. So it'll take care of itself, but that just shows that my cleaning process, something was amiss. I've not had that happen in a long time. But anyhow, look at that first coat of rust is often it's usually your best one. So that's a nice rust color. I'm putting it in the trusty tank I made here, which is a 4-inch piece of PVC with some framing around it just to hold it straight up. As I've said in my other videos before, when you're rust blowing, you don't have to put it into boiling water. You'll see people, and I used to do this as well, had a great big metal tank that I'd have to get heat under and boil the water, then I'd put my parts in it. But that's not necessary. I find this to be a lot easier. Right now I've got a big pot of boiling rainwater going on my stove, and put these in here. By the way, there's the trigger guard. I got it polished up to really nice high polish. This got a perfect coat of rust on it. Who knew rust could be so beautiful? That's beautiful rust right there, because that's going to turn into black oxide and give my trigger guard a great, beautiful coat of blue. So anyhow, now I just gotta go get my hot water and pour it right on top of that. 1 pot of boiling hot water coming up. Guard's not quite hanging all the way down in there, so lower it down. There we go. Not that it matters, but sometimes I'll put that right over there and just gonna let that simmer for about, I don't know, 30 minutes. Doesn't matter. It'll stay hot for a long time in there, but it probably doesn't take but 15 minutes. But I'm gonna go eat breakfast and let that do its thing. All right, time to clean this thing up. Let's see what we got. That nice black oxide that's formed on there. So next step is take this in and with rubber gloves on, can't get any sort of oils or anything on here, and wash it up with some steel wool. I use SOS pads. Take it in my laundry sink, wash all that oxide off really good. Then I get a scrub brush with some Dawn dish soap in it, and I wash it really good down with that, dry it off, get it back in the fume box. Also, you want to plug the barrels when you're rust blowing. You don't want the inside of the barrels. You're not trying to blue those. You want to keep rust out of the inside of the barrels, so you want to plug them up. And then you take the plugs out, of course, when you put it in the hot water. But that's the process. Just got to repeat this every day for, well, actually, as you get further along and it's not taking as much bluing, a lot of times it'll set in the rust box for 2 days. Anyhow, this is going to be about a 2-week project. I'm not going to check in every time I do it. All right, just pulled this out of the water. You saw it before. It was the beautiful rust. Now it's beautiful black oxide. With the exception, you can see maybe that one section there that didn't get as dark. Again, I probably had something on my little bit of my gloves, got a little bit of oil or something on there when I was cleaning this up before it went in the fume box, so it just didn't rust as well right there. But that will catch up in time. It's a nice thing about fume bluing, rust bluing, is everything eventually will be nice and even. So that's it. Just got to do this about 12 to 15 more times. Little update, just started doing a little bit of reassembly of this. Love the colors. Look how nice and cleaned up that is. All I did was polish all those parts in there. Hopefully I'll have a before picture to show in here just how cruddy, I guess would be the best word to describe what that looked like in there. Just old grease and dirt and gun oil and everything else. It was a mess, but inside, looking good now. Just polishing up some parts. That's just about any polish, as far as I know, will do. Using some of that. These tweezers, or the pliers, these are for what are they called, snap rings. I use them for pretty much everything except for snap rings. I bought them for some snap rings, but rarely have a need to use anything with snap ring on them. Gosh, I use these for everything else. They will hold a screw just fine. Put a little dab of my polish on here. These are the handiest pliers I have. Nice and shiny. Do the same with the spring. Already put some polish on it. Just work my way across it here. Get it nice and polished up. Just like that. All these other parts I heat treated to blue them. All these screw heads, after I polished them up real good, heat treated them, and then sprayed them with some clear Cerakote. Actually, I may have used some lacquer. I think I sprayed these with lacquer, just to try to maintain the color that was added to them for as long as possible. Nobody's going to see the inside of this gun but me, and maybe somebody will take it apart in the future, but I take a lot of pride in knowing that the inside looks as good as the outside, sometimes better.
All right, well, it's been a long time coming. I am getting pretty close to having this pretty cool Vulcan Arms shotgun all ready for final assembly. The barrel, where did I put the barrel? Just finished it this morning. Got it oiled up. Oop, wrong barrel. There we go. I probably rust blued this one more times than I ever have any barrel. I was trying to get it even darker. It's got more of a gray tone to it. It's not bad. I could not get it to be a darker color blue. Some metal just does that. I've had others that have done the same, but I didn't try as hard to keep rust blowing them over and over again. This didn't change colors for the last 8 rounds of rust blowing it. It just stayed exactly the same. So it's got a good color to it. Looks fine. It's just I was trying to get it more dark, more of a dark blue like this one, but it just wasn't having it. So that's not bad, because there's a lot of so with it being a little bit on the grayer side, it actually works out pretty nice, because as you can see, with this being color case hardened, there's a lot of grays in it. So I think it's going to be a blessing. It's going to probably look better having the little bit more of a gray tint to it than the dark blue that I was going for. This I just finished at the same time. This trigger guard came out really nice. But anything now, the only thing I'm waiting on is I want to put on a couple more coats of oil to this. So between coats, I'll go over it with some really fine steel wool just to knock it down. And what I'm trying to do is fill all the pores, fill all the open pores, at least most of the way. Otherwise, it might take me just another year of coat after coat getting on here. But it's shinier than the end product will be. I don't like it, at least on this gun, being too shiny. So I'll use a little bit of steel wool in there. Some people cringe at steel wool, but when you're using oil-based top coats, there's nothing wrong with it at all. I like it better than using sandpaper. But it'll help take that, and it still looks kind of shiny because of the light on it. But anyhow, that's what I'm waiting on. I'm done with the fore-end. This has come out very nice. I'm very pleased with the fore-end, with the color case hardening. Looks great. Parts all polished up, put back together. It's going to be a good looking gun. So until next time, putting finishing touches on this Vulcan Arms, which I believe was just probably a local brand name stuck on a Crescent. I believe this is made by Crescent. So it's coming out pretty nice. You can see all the nice polished internal parts there. Breaks down just like it's supposed to. Everything gets cocked. This has the indicators to let you know if they're sticking out at all. That side's cocked. Click. Click. Boom, boom. So it's getting there. Stock came out nice. Kept it original. All I did was clean it up and put some new oil on it. So came out nice.